Hello, welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today we'll be doing some drawing with graphite. So get out your pencils, your cotton swab, kneaded eraser, anything that you think you need to draw with. Have it right handy, and let's draw together. Remember, art makes life better. Go ahead and turn your paper so it's landscape. And just off to the side here, we're going to do a sphere about the size of a baseball. Or so, whatever. Remember to draw on the side of your pencil like this. I know that if you've never drawn with me, this is kind of weird, but when you draw on the side of your pencil, it keeps everything on the surface, doesn't grind it into the paper, so you can erase easily. Plus, it does better line this way. I'm just going to pull out my cast shadow like that. Just do a little ellipse for your cast shadow. And just like our sphere off to the side there, we've got a little spot of light over here. I'm not going to draw it in because I want my edges very soft. I just want to remember that's where it's at. That's where my little spot of light's going to go. I do have a darker core shadow in here, so I am going to put that in with the side of my pencil. Just as a little darker core shadow. Remember that the shape of the shadows reveals the shape of the form. So if your form is curved or rounded like a sphere, your shadows have to be curved and rounded. And I'm going to throw in my cast shadow here. Remember that the rule of shadows is the shadow is always darker nearer the object. And then as it comes out, it gets a little lighter. So as you draw it, just think to yourself, I'm going to do this really dark right in here. And then as it comes out, it's going to lighten up a little bit. And we can see that on our reference. If we roll our reference over here, you can see how the shadow gets kind of softer and lighter as it goes around this area right in there. Once I get everything kind of in the way I want it or where I want it to be, I go ahead and blend a little bit with my cotton swab. Now the idea with your cotton swab is you want to season your cotton swab. You want to get some graphite on there. It's just going to blend better. It's going to be a little smoother, a little nicer. Remember when I was in school, it made us use our fingers, and you just get messy fingers, and then to try and keep your artwork clean as you're drawing, it's just impossible. So that's why I like the cotton swab. It just easier. I'm just going to kind of move that around. And maybe while I'm here, I'm going to just go up and say, well, okay, I can see where that little spot of light should be. I'm going to just pull out that little spot of light. If you do it with your cotton swab, you know your edges are going to be nice and soft. So just pull out that little area for your cotton swab. Now this is by no means perfect, but it is all sitting on the surface. So anything that I need to erase, I can erase at this point. So I'm just going to take my kneaded eraser and clean it up, clean up some edges. You know, I wasn't exactly round with my sphere, so I'm going to just clean up things and try to make them as round and nice as I can. That's kind of my basics. Now, if you like smooth drawings, if you like your drawings, your values to feel kind of smooth, this is the way you do it. You kind of start out light, and you just keep adding, keep layering in graphite. Of course, your pencil, the lead part, is called graphite. They call it lead because 200 years ago, it was made out of lead. They used to do drawings with pencils that were made out of silver, and if you couldn't afford the silver, you used lead. Of course, nobody could afford silver, except the very wealthy. So now it's nice. I can now get rid of this pencil. This number 2 pencil, it'll either say number 2 or it'll say HB or both. That's your pencil that is not real light, it's not real dark, and so we use it as a layout pencil. And so now I'm going to abandon that pencil in favor of that really dark pencil. This is called an ebony pencil, but it's just a 6B smooth graphite drawing pencil. So you want to get that 6B pencil, and now you want to give it some authority. You want to make it really pop. You want to give it some darkness. So I'm going to just go in with this 6B, and I'm going to turn my pencil up because everything's the way I want it. I've cleaned it up, I've made it, adjusted my proportions and whatever I need. And I've just kind of turned it up. I'm going to give it some power, a little bit of pressure, really darken in that graphite, make it nice and rich and smooth. I'm just darkening in this graphite. And again, remember that it's darker closer to your object. So I'm really going to give it some pressure and darken it out real close to my object. And then as it comes away, I just kind of lighten up. And I know I can blend this from here out as well. So I can take my cotton swab in there and blend it. And just soften it as it comes out. Remember, on the edge of your shadows, the farther away it gets from your object, the softer those edges are going to get. So you might have some very soft, light edges on the outside, a little harder edges towards the object. I'm going to do the same thing for my core shadow. That core shadow that runs down through there, it's just a little bit darker, so I want to heighten that core shadow. And again, start out light and layer it in. Make sure your shadows are nice and curved. Curve of the object, curve of the shadows. And I'm just going to blend that a little bit. Remember your reflected light. Don't blend too much into your reflected light. If you do, you can always take your kneaded eraser and dab it up a little bit. Kneaded erasers are designed to absorb the graphite. It doesn't rub it out, it actually sucks it up. So you can just touch it with your kneaded eraser and it'll suck up the graphite. Remember to soften your edges as soft as you can get them. And then just to make it a little bit punchier, I'm going to go back into that with my 6B pencil. Just make it get a little bit more punch. Sometimes I won't blend the very last little bit that I put in there. I just don't want to blend it, because if I do, it's going to get rid of some of the graphite here. It kind of pulls it out. I want it to stay there. So just a nice rich shadow. Graphite will never go black. It'll go dark, but it'll never go black. So if you really want it black, you have to use something else. Charcoal or ink. Or they do make a pencil that is a graphite polymer. It's part graphite, part plastic. Kind of this polymer stuff. And it's supposed to go very black and be like pencil. But I always find it has kind of a funny texture to it, so I never use them. Maybe I should give them another chance, but last time I did, I thought it was kind of funny. And so I'm going to go back into that core shadow and do a little bit of blending here. And again, if you want it smooth, another thing you can do is, we're normally used to shading one way. So if we're right-handed, we shade from top to bottom, right to left. And we kind of go in that direction. All you got to do is switch your hand around and keep doing the same thing, but you're going in a different direction. So kind of a crosshatch kind of a thing with your graphite. And I do this, I don't even think about it anymore, I just do it. So try to make that sphere look very, very round by softening all those edges. Remember that everything has to have value except the highlight. Now, sometimes when you're drawing, you kind of choose to put in a highlight, or you choose to make something a little lighter or darker, because you know it's going to enhance it and make it better. When you're doing a sphere like this, you gotta keep that little highlight, keep that little soft edge. And then as it gets light, it goes towards your shadow. Somewhere in there, you want to increase that darkness. And then on the very edge, you want to have that reflected light down in there. And the last thing you do, clean it up with your kneaded eraser, like your edges or any spots that you may want to get into. Your highlight, you want to just make sure it's nice and clean, nice and bright. And sometimes I'll even soften my edges by just dabbing it with my kneaded eraser. Just to keep it nice and soft. And then go back into your darks. And then leave them. No need to blend now. Our blending is done. And that, my friends, is a sphere. Now, notice also there were edges that, like some of these edges, we didn't have to draw a line around these edges. I mean, we started out with an edge and a line, but now we don't really need to, because they take care of themselves. Don't be afraid to just leave some things out every now and then. Sometimes it just makes it more interesting. I'm going to label this just to remind myself what it is. So what do we call the little spot of light? Highlight. What do we call this part of it? So over here, this one's labeled too, and if you want, you can look at this labels. I sometimes label them a little different than they do. Some people will call this the median shadow. I call it the shadow edge. This is light or light side. Some people like to say this is the light side, shadow side. Then you have your shadow edge. I'm just going to say the shadow edge. I'm not really sure where it starts and stops, but somewhere in there is my shadow edge. Then we have our core shadow. And our cast shadow. And down here is our reflected light. So again, if we look at our example here, our cast shadow, our reflected light, a little bit of light that's down in there. Our shadow core. These guys say core of shadow. That sounds goofy to me, but your shadow edge, your light, your highlight. We have one more thing that I think is important. I'm going to call it a hole. Because sometimes when you're drawing, you're going to run into areas that are very, very, very dark. So I'm just going to make a little hole. And I'm going to go as dark as my 6B pencil can go in there, right immediately. So I'm going to get this very dark shadow. Again, it's not black, because graphite won't go black, but it's as dark as I can get it. I'm going to call that the hole. Shade a little on the side. Voila, we're going to just call that a hole. H-O-L-E. So that also gives us 7 values on the sphere. Just like the 7 principles of art and 7 elements of art, 7 values. I just like the number 7. It just seems to work out. So as we draw today, you're going to notice some of these little holes, and you're going to say to yourself, well, golly, that is really, really dark, especially the pupils of the eye. Sometimes in the nostril or behind the ear, or usually there's not very many. They're tiny little areas, but they are very dark like that. So let's shift over to our picture that we have. Notice the reflected light on the nose, on the nostril over here, a little bit over there. I've got highlight right there, light side, shadow edge, shadow core, and here's our cast shadow right there. And so if you think about the chin, it's the same way. Everything has these shadows to it like what we've drawn. So let's go ahead and draw this face. So we've left ourselves some space here for a face. Let's go ahead and do the face here. I'm just going to start out with kind of an oval, kind of an egg shape, if you will. Of course, this is representing of the skull, the whole head. And the eyes are right smack dab in the middle. So if I go from the very top, I'm just going to go like this and make a little mark. There's my eyes right smack dab in the middle. And again, at this point, it might be advantageous for us to do a little bit of proportioning. And if you like to draw faces or want to be able to draw faces, here's some proportioning. If you divide the eyes, now the eyes themselves, you go right smack dab in the middle of this section here, your eyes are going to be kind of right off to the inside like this. There's your pupils, and they sit right on that halfway line. Then if you divide that between the chin and the eyes in half, that is not the nose. You will see some people saying that that's where the nose is. If you do that, then you get long noses. But that's not where the nose is. That's your philtrum. It's right in between the nose and the lip. And you might even be able to say, well, that's kind of my upper lip. But I'm just going to go just below that, put a little line and say that's my upper lip. And just above that, and that's my nose. And you can just make kind of a little V shape like this and say that's my nose. And then if you cut straight down from your tear duct, that becomes a nostril. And then your eye width is one nose. So if we were to measure her eye, that would also be the same width as her nose. So I can take that width, measure it with my pencil, and say that's my eye width. That's how wide my eye is. And you should have one eye in between the eyes. So one eye distance in between the eyes. And that's your nose. And if you come straight down from the center of the eye, the inside center of the eye, I should say, you come straight down from like where the iris is, come straight down, make a little mark, straight down, make a little mark on the other side. That's how wide the mouth is. So you can figure out the width of the mouth. I always just put a little shadow or a little line there to say this is where the bottom lip goes. Eyebrows are above it. Her hair goes right to her eyebrows. I guess we could do that. So now that we have our proportions, we can start getting the face structure. If you go straight out from the tip of the nose, so not from the end of the nose, but the tip of the nose right here, come straight out, that's about where the earlobes are. So you do this little like half circle there and say that's an earlobe. Come straight out there, there's an earlobe out here. Come straight out from the mouth, and there's where the curve of the jaw goes. So your cheek kind of comes in, and then it curves into the jaw. That's where that curve goes, is right there. We can adjust some subtle things. She's got kind of a dip in her chin right there. We can do that later on. She's also got a little bit of teeth showing. We can do that later on as well. I can now go in and with the side of my pencil, I'm going to do just a little bit of shading, just like we did with our sphere. Just a little bit of shading. And again, this is with the side of our pencil, meaning that everything can be easily erased. She's got very large eyeballs. even that cast shadow from her nose, try to look at the shape of it and then just shade it in. Don't draw a line around anything. There's the shadow under her chin. Remember to leave a little bit of space for that reflected light. Even if you cannot see the reflected light, pretend it's there. Sometimes it makes your form look better. And so you just kind of go, I know it should be there. Throw it in. Sometimes the camera doesn't pick it up, but your eye does. You can make things look better than they really are. That's the really cool thing about drawing. And the idea that you are teaching other people to see. So sometimes you have to teach them to see those reflected lights. When you're doing hair, especially dark hair like this, a good thing to do is just find the shape of the values and throw it in. You can always just add a few little lines here and there. Everybody's going to look at it and go, oh, it looks like hair. Just go, yeah. I don't know what it looks like on the top. We didn't really have a whole lot of options for the hair, but so just the very top of her iris is cut off. You'll see the bottom part of the iris, but the top part is cut off. Just barely. Wherever there is a highlight, a little shine, just leave it out. Leave that space out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into it and blend it, just like I did with my sphere. Just going to go in and blend it a little bit. Try to get some of those subtle shades, light and dark. It also will help me to get my form in there. And it smooths it all out. Remember, everywhere except where the highlights are need to have some value. So she's got a little highlight right on the tip of her nose. One that kind of goes down the bridge. So I'm just going to throw those in. And then you kind of start analyzing your drawing. Is it right? Is the, the shape of the head right? Is the eyes in the right place? Is the nose where it needs to be? If it isn't, this is the time to change it. Because once we start putting in real rich darkness using the tip of our pencil, there's no going back. No matter how good your eraser is, it'll never erase it completely. So just analyze it. How's it look? A little self-critique here. So this is part of the problem that a lot of people have, is they'll start trying to darken it in too soon without getting the proportions, and then they'll suddenly realize, oh no, it's not right, it's not where it needs to be. So then they'll try and change it, and they can never get rid of that darkness. Everything here can be easily erased because it's just sitting on the surface. Also, notice the whites of the eyes. The whites of the eyes are not white. There might be a little highlight in there, and they might appear lighter than the rest of the flesh. Well, hers don't. Her eyes are much darker than the rest of her skin. So don't be afraid to blend a little bit there. Now what I want to do is, just like we did with the sphere, we want certain places to pop. We want them to just be as bright and dark as possible. And the eyes, that's one of them. So I'm going to start out with the eyes. I'm going to start out first with the eyelid. That's very dark. I'm just going to go over with my pencil and make a little dark edge. She does have eyelashes, so we'll darken those in as well. The ring of her eye, the iris part, is dark. Not as dark as some that I've seen. And then her pupil is a hole. And so I'm going to really add some darkness to that as I go around. There's a little highlight, a little shadow, or a little reflection of the umbrella or flash from the camera. One thing about the eye too is you want to make sure it's nice and round as you can get it. And I'm going to just below the eyelashes, I'm going to darken that on the iris itself. Let me zoom into that so you can see what I'm doing. And when I blend it, I'm going to blend it from the top down, and I want it to stay a little bit lighter right in here. Also notice on her eyelid, on the very bottom of her eyelid, there's a little bit of light right there. So you want to keep that light, just as light as you possibly can. I haven't done the eyelashes yet. They're kind of the last thing to do because they go over the top of all the other shadows. So then I'm going to go ahead and blend this stuff with my cotton swab. So I'm going to start with the inside of the eye and work my way out. Inside of the eye, I'm just going to blend that down. Take this and blend that down. If I get into that little highlight, I just have to take my kneaded eraser and try to get that back out. Same thing with the eyelid. It'll catch some of that light, and I don't want it to go too deep. Just using my cotton swab to blend some things. Try to stay away from the light parts as much as you can, but if you get into them, it just is what it is. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my kneaded eraser, I'm going to hit that highlight, try to keep it nice and bright, and the little spot of light right under her eye, on her eyelid right there, and maybe even a couple little spots in the iris on the bottom, just enough to really make it look like glass. That'll make that eye nice and bright. And then right on the eyelid, I think when I blended it, I blended too much up into there. So I want to bring out some of that light again. I'm just going to go in and pull out some of that light right there. And last but not least, I'm going to go in with my pencil and put in some of those feathered lines for the eyelashes. Remember that they curve out, and then as you get to the middle, they kind of straighten up, and as they get over here, they curve out again, the opposite way. Same thing with the top eyelashes. The outside curve more to the outside, and then as they get towards the middle, they curve more up. And then you get a nice eye that's very glassy looking. I'm going to do that with the other eye as well. Because you want it to just pop. You want it to come right off the page and just feel like it's really there, as she's looking up at you. One of the hardest things is to get your eyes so that they're the same size. Just do your best. It's not as easy as it looks. There's a lot that you can't see in there, so you just look at the other eye. You know how it goes. Think, well, this eye in the darkness is probably very similar. So you can do the same thing there. Add some shading to it. If you want your edges of your shadows to be soft, keep them soft. Don't do a line and then shade. Just do the zigzaggies. And keep those nice and soft. And as you blend them, they'll soften up. You may want to, you probably get the urge to do a line around the lips. Try to avoid that urge, because most people don't have lines around their lips. The edges of their lips aren't darker. Now, if you're wearing lipstick, then maybe it kind of feels that way. But naturally, you wouldn't have that kind of line around the lip. So you want to kind of avoid drawing lines around your lips and just use shadows. Just remember that the corners of the mouth are often darker. There's even reflected light on the lip. So look at the bottom of the lip, just leave that out so that you can get that reflected light in there. See how soft and subtle you can get that reflected light on her nose. I get asked all the time how to do lips too, because you got the little cracks in your lips. I do those with my cotton swab. I'll just go through and I'll just do some little kind of edges coming out away from the lip like this to give those cracks. And I'll come back in with my kneaded eraser and pull those areas out. Some of that light too. Don't be afraid to really go dark in dark areas. Sometimes we think to ourselves, oh, if I go that dark, I can't get rid of it. Yeah, but you're already pretty sure that that's where it needs to be. Might as well do it. Commit to it. It'll look better than if you timidly hold on to it as a gray.
I think I fixed it.
You know, once you do the eyes and the nose and the mouth and get the shape of the head, hair doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Now, you tell my wife that, she might say something different because she's a cosmetologist. basically, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Thanks for joining me on this artistic journey. And just remember, art makes life better.